At the time of this writing, July of 2023, there is no shortage of shotguns coming from the far-off country of Turkey. Opinions on them range from they are absolutely terrible and a total waste of your time and energy, to they are great and represent the pinnacle of value versus quality. One thing is clear, Turkey has taken over the gun world as the cheap shotgun king. Prior to this, China was the cheap shotgun king. But now we can think of cheap shotguns belonging to the Turks. Here we will go into a couple of different baselines and ask ourselves, are these things even worth it? The market has totally dropped out of the Turkish shotgun world. I have been in the gun game for over 25 years now, and one thing you will hear over and over again is an old fellow at a gun show saying, quote, "I should have bought one of these when they were cheap," end quote. Usually involving surplus firearms, but also involving some imported guns and even some domestic ones. I remember buying my first Mosin Nagant M44 carbine and a tin of ammo for $75. I bought my first Mini 14 for $350. I remember buying a Russian Sega for $250. I remember buying a Smith & Wesson Model 64 for $245. I'm not that old, but I will tell you that in the gun marketplace, when things are cheap and common, you should buy them. Because the market changes all of a sudden and they become more expensive. The variety of Turkish shotguns that we are currently enjoying an abundance of would indicate that now is the time to buy. I will skip over the more traditional model Turkish shotguns here and instead give a little bit of background on the proliferation of the AR style shotguns so common today. These, almost all, are coming out of Turkey, and if you try to track all of them and try to figure out which one is which, you will likely go insane and could probably write a book on the variety of different models. Seriously, this is confusing as hell with multiple different importers branding shotguns that all seem to be made out of the same parts with different names on them. In fact, when I decided to actually try a couple of these out and see what was what with them, I kind of thought I would wind up with two pretty much identical shotguns that have different names on them. That turns out not to be the case. These things are a rabbit hole, for sure. The history of these Turkish shotguns is convoluted and hard to track, so if I screw this up glaringly, feel free to let me know. I would be happy to give you a refund of the purchase price of this video, so you get nothing. The earliest reference I can find to these shotguns was developed by a company called Akdal in Turkey under the model MKA 1919. This shotgun was developed around 2006 for use by the Turkish military and police forces. This is similar to the Russian Sega 12 as they were developed by Ishmash for the same purpose. So these shotguns do supposedly have some military or police use. However, I can find no photographic evidence of this. Turkish police seem to prefer the MP5 or older G3 rifles as to what I have seen. So I will leave you to take that particular part of information with a grain of salt. This was first marketed in the U.S. under the Akdal MK 1919 name and seemed to have surfaced sometime before 2010. These guns were significantly different than the ones that we see today. They look very much like an overgrown Kludge AR-15A1 full-length rifle with a round handguard and a carry handle, as well as equally bad-looking plastic representations of the M16 style front sight. Early reports on these models were almost universally that the gun did not run worth a damn, but looked pretty cool to some and was a unique shotgun. The initial price was also high, somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 or $900. These first models were largely ignored as the Sega 12 at the time had quite a strong following and custom makers were building parts that would allow these to be converted to run better, showing up on the competition 3-gun circuit where the advantage of fast reloading could not be denied. However, this shotgun having a similar layout and controls to the preferred AR competition rifle as opposed to the AK meant that this shotgun would not simply die as a curiosity. Custom gunsmiths began to work on these early guns, enhancing parts to make them more reliable, and lo and behold, they seemed to continue as sell as a basis for a 3-gun setup. This inevitably led to a few magazine manufacturers, particularly ProMag, beginning to make high-capacity magazines for them, and some custom makers began to work out the kinks on these early models. The array of different models imported here are dizzying. Where exactly they all are coming from and what factories are producing what can make a guy get super confused easy. and also seem to be all over the place. Importers include Rock Island, EEA, Citadel, SDS, Elkson, Emperor, Typhoon, Panzer, TriStar, Landor, LKCI, G-Force, TR, Century Arms, Tokarev, and I am sure others I missed. I am just one guy and cannot speak to all of these. Like I said, that could probably be a book in and of itself as to how many different models of essentially the same shotgun have been brought over in the last few years. I am sure the Blue Book of Gun Values will have a bunch of them all lumped together, and they will be the bane of the existence of gun shop owners for years trying to value all of them. So, I will try to break this down into two basic types of these guns, as all of them seem very similar and go down two very distinct and different roads. The Type 1. The first is the Garrison types. These include some of the Rock Island models, Emperor, and some of the TriStars as well. The easiest way to spot these is that the gas port and operating system will be under the barrel and not around it. The other way to tell is by the pistol grip being non-detachable and the buttstock looking very M16 in appearance. This is the model that started it all, and the one that has the modification parts available. Custom gunsmiths work these over to this day. This is also the model that includes two separate gas rings to allow for light and heavy loads. Mechanically, the action is very similar to a Remington 1187 with a bunch of AR-like parts attached to it, and a mag feed system. The system is gas operated, and one digs around inside a Garrison or 1187, you will find the parts are pretty familiar. The gas system is supported by a tube that hangs down under the barrel where a 1187 tube magazine would live. This is why you find the early ones with a magazine tube looking cap under the barrel. That's why they used it. These types of shotguns appear to have been modified and improved over the years. They're the ones that have been in the production the longest. Garrison now calls them the 1919 match model. Improvements include an aluminum handguard, a bolt on the end of the gas system support instead of a fake magazine tube cap that apparently had a tendency to work loose, the dropping of the fake-ass carry handle and front sight with the 1913 rail and flip-up open sights is standard. The one I have also has a bilateral safety lever. One other note on these is the feed ramp and the lower receiver slides up and down with the insertion of a magazine. The second type is a G-Force style. These appear to be the most common at the moment, and one could argue they are an improvement over the earlier Garrison type. These will have the gas system living around the barrel instead of under it. The G-Force, Typhoon, and Panzers, as well as many others, appear to be of this type. The easiest way to tell on these is they usually have a skinny buttstock, and the pistol grip will likely be removable on these versions. Another absolutely dead giveaway is they will always have a barrel nut or a shroud over the barrel to hold the gas system together. These lack the custom parts that the Type 1s have on the market, which is a shame only because there are good advantages here. These lower receivers will also have a lever on the side that will allow the feed ramp to swing down out of the way in order to facilitate disassembly, as opposed to a spring-loaded feed ramp on the Type 1. The Type 2 is a more efficient system compared to a system hanging under the barrel where a magazine tube should be. These guns don't have that tube, so why hang the system under the barrel? Also of note, the gas system does not feature any adjustability. This lack of adjustment can be an issue with gas operation on shotguns. Remember, the shotgun has the widest variety of loads available for it, from extremely light to extremely heavy powder charges. This means if the shotgun does not like light loads, it likely never will, and also that it will rip itself apart if it is given a steady diet of the heavy stuff. It appears based on research that these tend to be the least likely to run out of the box on light target loads. Although after a few rounds of the heavier stuff, you may get them to work with lighter stuff as the parts have a tendency to break in. There is no user adjustable quote-unquote fix here to get the damn thing to run on lighter stuff, and the gas systems tends to be set to heavier loads, so the gun will function with them and not break anything prematurely or wear out. Just to make this more complicated, there are two of these types of shotguns that really don't fit in these two categories that I have created. The first one is imported by JTS and is different enough that it does not even take the same magazines at all of the 1919 type. It's much more true to the AR style rifle than the 1187 base system as far as bolt carrier and buffer system are concerned. The other is the Hatsan Escort, which is a Type 2 with an AR-15 style buffer system on the back of the receiver to drive recoil instead of a spring over the barrel, but it uses the 1919 type magazines. So, having broke this down to two different and distinct types of shotguns, my hope is that the viewers that are watching this would be able to make a more informed decision on what they are buying if they decide to plunge into the depths of Turkish made AR-15 style shotguns. In the next part, I'm going to examine two different models, one of the Type 1, one of the Type 2, and see if there's any advantage over one or the other and which one you should probably be looking at. But knowing the attention span of the average YouTube video, you're probably not even watching to this point, so you may not even catch part 2. But there will be a part 2. I do some pretty extensive testing, so if you want to, stay tuned for that. In addition, you can also go on my website, rdmfjones.com, and you may find, in fact, the entire article that this video series is based on. But in the meantime, if you like this kind of stuff, I don't care. If you want to subscribe, I don't care, because I don't do any of this for you. I do it for me. Thanks.